Welcome to Break Free and Thrive. Today, our spotlight interview is with Dr. Kristina Hallett. And I have to share the way that Dr. Hallett and I met because it was a little bit unusual. I had gone to a conference and I was looking to, didn't really know anyone else at the conference, and I posted something on Facebook and said, would someone be interesting to share a room? And I was enamored with my roommate, and that was Kristina. So thank you, Kristina, for joining us today and just sharing a bit about what you do and your life. And I am really honored that you're here today.
Oh, thank you. I was so glad that we had that chance to room together and to get to know you. And, you know, even the story of that, I think, speaks to our conversation and the kind of work that you do and that I do in a slightly different way. Because when I think about that, the thought of rooming with a stranger would never have happened. So when I was in my 20s and 30s, there's no way. I've been like, oh, no, I'll either pay more to be alone and just sort of stay by myself and then hope someone makes friends with me, or maybe I won't go at all, right? So that there's that whole opening up to why not?
Right. Well, and that was one of the things that when you say, okay, I'm willing to room with someone, and I've had some other experiences that I was just like, oh my goodness, what was I thinking, you know? And then I've had other experiences with one of which was with you, and I was just like, oh my goodness, that was so awesome.
Exactly. It was perfect. We had a great time and we just instantly meshed. So I love the way that sort of kindred spirits can connect in the world and then maintain that, because it wasn't like that just happened a week ago. That was a while ago.
It was a while ago. And one of the other things that I actually wanted to say was we've kept in touch since we met. And as a result, we've kind of followed each other's path. And I've seen you metamorphosize in that time period, because at that time you had said to me, oh, take a look at, you know, I'm going to be doing some speaking, and do you like this outfit or do you like this outfit? And I was just like, well, I kind of like both of them. And it was like the different sides of Kristina. And at the same time, I see you today and you've got different glasses on, you've got a different jacket on. And I'm just like, this woman is just like, I love who you are.
Thank you. You know that I feel the same way about you. And we were just talking before we got on air about this jacket because I love it. It's so fun, right? It's super cool. And actually, when we were last together, my hair was super blonde, even though I'm naturally dark haired. And part of that is that, again, there were many decades, sort of the first 3 to 4 decades of my life, in which I would not have worn something like this, because I would have felt that there were a bunch of shoulds attached to it. As in, I should dress a particular way as a psychologist, or I'm working in corporate, I need to have a particular way of presenting. And lots of fears that perhaps people would think less of me or develop some kind of idea about who I was and how I was. And one of the things that I truly think that midlife begins to give us is this gift of freedom and of saying, well, how about I do what it is that I think I like, rather than what I imagine somebody else thinks is important.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that we really want to focus on today, because as a result of being in careers for a long time, we kind of go down this path and we, you know, focus on following all of the protocol and, you know, following all the processes. And then we get to a point where we're like, I kind of lost touch with who I am. So I think it's just awesome that you have this this book that's in your office here, and it just says believe in who you are and what you stand for. And it's really taking a look within. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that you have actually been able to open up and provide for women that are kind of trying to figure out who they are.
Exactly, because one of the things that happens, and of course it happens for all people, but you and I both focus more on women and supporting and empowering women to literally care for themselves, be who they are, and transition into a life that they absolutely love. And I think part of the reason that we both have this focus on women is because there's so many societal ideas about what it means and what you can do and what you can't do. And I found it so easy, and this was true for me as well. So I'm a woman and very much a part of the crew who sort of said, oh, the shoulds and the should nots and the must nots of what I perceived were required as a woman really guided many of the steps that I took. And so I wrote, this, but I've written 2 books. I even can show them to you. One,
Please do
this
that.
one. This is my first book, which I love. It's my book. I can do that. It's called Own Best Friend, 8 Steps to a Life of Purpose, Passion, and Ease. And this is really sort of the core idea of what I think women need to do, is we need to learn to be our own best friend, because we've spent so much time, both at home, with our friends, and in business, taking care of other people. And we've let ourselves fall to the bottom of the list and sometimes off the list altogether. And so for me, really coming to what does it mean to be my own best friend was the beginning of that. And then that was followed up by my newest, Be Awesome, Banish Burnout, Create Motivation from the Inside Out. And that's really sort of step 2 after the foundational parts of Own Best Friend, in terms of how do we get to be awesome and really let ourselves be this rock star.
Well, and one of the things that I actually wanted to focus on, because as you were writing your book, I was writing my book. And when you talked about Own Best Friend, I was like, how many women really realize the relationship with themselves is the critical one?
Exactly. It's the most important piece. And it's the one that we tend to give the least amount of time to.
Right. And as much as we talk about, and I know I've spoken to a lot of women that are corporate, and they've mentioned they're going through challenging relationships, and those could be with spouses or partners, but it also could be with executive and management teams. And part of the reason that those relationships are not working as well is because it all starts within.
Exactly. And that's sort of, I think, the key that both of us really believe is that all of this work starts, sorry about that, from the inside out. And that if we're not, and there's research behind this too, right? There's a ton of research. But if we're not taking care of ourselves, if we're not valuing who we are, then that impedes our productivity and our relationships outside in the rest of the world. And so we've got to find this way to sort of open up and say, what if I actually took responsibility for me? And we've talked about that it will always come down to there's
something went wrong.
Sorry, I have no idea. Oh, it's because I feel so strongly about this topic. Look what's happened. I get all choked up right away. But right, each one of us is responsible for our own thoughts, feelings, and actions. Mm-hmm. And we have this idea that perhaps we need to be or take on responsibility for other people's thoughts, feelings, and actions. And that's not true. That each one of us is only able to be responsible for ourselves. But when we can really embrace that and say, hey, how I am and who I am, that's up to me, not anyone else, we begin to crack open that door to freedom.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's a ironic thing that you would say, only because, I had an interaction with someone after I became divorced, and the first thing he said was, I'm not going to read your mind. And I was just like, oh no, you do not want to read my mind. And he's just like, you don't understand. There are so many women that think others can read their minds, read their feelings. You've been with someone for a long time. And I was just like, no, that doesn't work for me. And I have found actually that once you do take ownership for your own ideas and feelings rather than having someone else place a label on you, it's like you become so much more empowered.
Exactly. You get to write your own story. That is unbelievably powerful. And, even psychological research tells us there's this whole idea that I talk about choosing what we perceive. And that's partly what the research backs up. And people will say, no, I can't. Like, I think I showed you a couple of years ago, the back of my business card says, happiness is a choice. It's work, but it's a choice. And so we're not saying that it's easy. We're not saying, hey, quick as, lickety split, we can alter all of these perceptions. But by paying attention and making a committed effort to say, I want to look at things a little differently, or how can I sort of take this outside of me and look at it from a neutral perspective instead of bringing in some of the self-doubt or the self-criticism, and instead say, how do I want to feel? What do I want in my life? And I think that's one of the other things that happens so often, particularly for women who are in corporate situations, is that we have this tendency to lose track of who we are and what we want. So then suddenly someone says, well, what do you want? We're like, I don't know, or what's your favorite? And we've spent so much time imagining someone else's needs or taking care of other people or doing what we thought was the right thing that suddenly we're like, I don't know. And we've got to start that journey of discovery.
Mm-hmm. And I think we're at a crossroads right now in the environment, the political environment as well as corporate environment, because now women are empowered to speak up more than ever before. So when we talk about that empowerment, your second book, Be Awesome, choose happiness, what other more empowering words can you choose than to step up and really investigate who you are so that you can be to your fullest potential?
Well, exactly. So here's the thing. We all have a voice. Now, we have not always used our voice, but we have one. And sometimes we've been the person who's silenced ourselves, and sometimes circumstances have really contributed to us feeling that the wisest or safest thing to do was to silence. But in the long run, it isn't. In the long run, what we want to do, what is most helpful to living our fullest best life, that lets us be a rock star and be awesome, but also makes a difference in the world, is to say, this is my voice and this is how I use it. And if somebody else doesn't like it or they don't agree, that's totally okay, because they are as welcome to their own opinions and perceptions as we are to ours. That it's not that they deserve to have their opinion and we don't, or that we do and they don't. That everyone has a voice. And the more each one of us uses our voice, the more we begin to see the connections with other people, and that our voices can begin to join together. And I think then we all become stronger and continue to lift everyone up.
Right. And that actually was one of the other things that I wanted to mention. So when you wrote in your book, Own Best Friend, and identifying what's your passion and purpose, the next step in being awesome, both of these books were written to resonate with women so that they can identify who is their own best friend, who is, the person within that they can rise to be awesome. And sometimes being awesome takes a little bit of work.
Oh, it absolutely does. There's no question about it. Apparently there's dust in this room. What can I tell you? So I'm so busy being awesome. Apparently I haven't gotten rid of all the dust. Sorry, everyone. I appreciate your forgiveness, all of you listeners, in my coughing. But it is absolutely true that one of the steps we need to take is to own our strengths. And I think that's another place where we tend to back off. because we have this idea that if we're owning our strengths, or that we're seeing ourselves as awesome or as a rock star or as just fabulous, that people will think that we're conceited or we're full of ourselves or that we're bragging. And that is one of the biggest myths that I know both you and I want to just bust open.
Yes.
Because the reality is that when you know your strengths, you don't have to be talking about them. Again, it's internal. You know them, and you know your strengths and appreciate them and use them. And then you become much more effective and efficient and productive in the world. And people see that, and they're drawn to you, and they learn from that, which is very different than, oh, hey, I'm amazing, let me tell you why. I mean, we're not talking about walking around with a banner saying, woo, this is what's great. I mean, you feel free. Like, if someone wants to do that, go for it. But it's more,
and we
right?
do have individuals that walk around with that banner.
Right. But we're really talking about having the confidence to both discover and then express what you like as the individual. So I love this. And I loved the same thing 20 years ago, but I wouldn't have worn it. It actually, the very first time, so I was born with very dark hair and one tone. And I remember the very first time I got one little blonde highlight, my best friend had to come and hold my hand. I was so nervous. She was like, seriously, you're getting a highlight, not like highlights, a highlight. And it wasn't the process of obviously that's not a big deal, right. But it was this idea of I was doing something that might bring more notice to me, or that someone might think something about. I hadn't really thought it through at the time. It was only afterwards when she said, okay, woo, so what was the big deal here? Like, why were you freaking out about this? And then I thought, oh, it had to do with my self-concept and my self-confidence. It had nothing to do with what it means to change your hair or anything else. So it can be even in these little ways where we don't even realize how we've silenced or shut down or drawn inside. And that this is really just about sort of sitting and standing tall and saying, hey, if it works for me, that's great. It doesn't have to work for anybody else. And then it's so much, as we've said, freer and easier that all of those next steps. Do I want to try something different? So you and I have both explored, and we've been doing speaking. And I was asked to be, there's a brand new event coming on in New York City. It's called Speakers Who Dare. And this is going to be held at the Triad Theater. And it's based on TED Talk format. Okay. Although it's more than TED Talks. So it's put on, Trisha Brook was the executive producer of TEDx Lincoln Square. And she and her business partner, Jamie Broderick, decided they wanted to do sort of TEDx, but more, because they wanted more of a performance. So they've put together Speakers Who Dare, and this is the first year, and they're going to be doing it all over the place and every year annually in New York. And they actually asked me to be a speaker in Speakers Who Dare. So it wasn't an application process. That was pretty exciting. It's like, ooh, thank you. But here's what I'm going to do. And this speaks to how important I think it is for us to be willing to be our authentic, genuine self, and then to embrace vulnerability. Because not everything goes perfectly, just like me coughing. Like, there's nothing I can do about it. Would I wish that didn't happen? Yeah, but that's okay. When I can say I am who I am, whether it goes perfectly or not, it's so much easier. So what I'm going to be doing for Speakers Who Dare is I'm going to walk on stage, and they're going to take questions from the audience on my topics. Things like burnout and compassion and being your own best friend and dealing with stress. And I am then going to create a talk on stage. Wow. On this, right, that's what I'm doing. So for this TED Talk format, so I'll have 18 minutes, and what they call it is watching a talk happen. Now, there's a lot of vulnerability in that, right? It's, when we first talked about doing speaking,
Mm-hmm.
it was this idea about having a signature talk, and that was your one or two messages, and you'd go do them everywhere. And so that's been something I know that both of us have been growing. And so then for me, the next step is always yes. And the secret that I think other women can employ is someone suggests something or you think of an idea, and if it makes you sort of sick to your stomach, then that's when you say, yes, yes, I will do that. That's embracing that vulnerability and understanding that you are a person of worth and value regardless of what happens.
Well, and I think that's kind of cool that you're doing this. And it sounds almost like an improv, because I actually, through some of my speaker training, someone had recommended, why don't you just go to, an improv theater and kind of speak on your feet? And I was just like, oh, no, I can't do that. And they turned around and said, why not? And I was just like, you're right. Why not? I mean, and it's in a fun setting. I mean, there are probably about 50 people in the audience, and everyone else is kind of going through the same thing. And you get a topic, and you're on stage with, maybe 3 or 4 people, and they give you a scene, and it's just like, okay, figure it out. And I have noticed, well, I'm an introvert, so I would never have been in a position that I would have said, oh yeah, I want to do that. But I think that's one of the things about being at this age, at this crossroads in life, on this journey, and it's just like, break free, thrive, and really enjoy who you are and what you're experiencing, because every day is a new adventure, and that new adventure brings you to who you are meant to be. So I know we've had this conversation prior, and you were talking about, I have this boot collection, and that boot collection represents the different, and I'm going to say different faces, but the different, maybe they are personalities, but the different personas that you take on.
I do. So I really love boots, and I have a whole variety of different kinds of boots, but in specific, I have 6 different pairs of cowboy boots, one of which is bright hot pink. And let me tell you, my husband's like, really? That's nice, honey. You're going to wear those? I'm like, of course I am. And of course I have like a bright pink sweatshirt and a pink shirt that go really well with them. It's fabulous with jeans. And again, I love pink, right? Because for me, pink is cheery. And he's like, what woman of your age is doing that? Like, are you okay with that? I'm like, of course I am. Because all I need to do is to make me happy.
Exactly.
And so, right? And so I have other ones. So there's like blue with studs in them and different color cowboy boots. I just think they're so much fun. Well, hopefully that ringing phone will go away. Seriously, it's got to be a telemarketer, because never does my phone ring. Of course, we're just doomed. Let me mute this for 1 second. You talk.
Okay. So the other thing I wanted to actually highlight was, we've done the same thing when we've talked about, I know you have gone to getting a different car or getting a different Jeep, and we talked about the color of that. And I'm going to say the same thing. In my younger years, I would have never thought of buying a red car. Never. And I was like, I wouldn't even wear red. You see what color I'm wearing? And it's one of those things where you just get to this point in your life, and it's just like, it's newfound freedom. It's newfound energy, and it energizes you, it empowers you, but it also gives you a whole different, and I'm going to say spin, but I don't quite mean that, but it gives you a whole different perspective on who you are and the impact that you make. And yes, wearing your leopard jacket, you're going to go out, even if it's to a coffee shop, and it's going to be a conversation starter. If you go in your pink cowboy boots, it's going to be a conversation starter, and someone is going to say to you, and I know this has already happened, I could never wear those pink cowboy boots. And then you have the conversation to say, why not?
Exactly. So you mentioned, and it's so funny because I know you know the story, but very briefly, just to help your listeners, literally I was a single mom at the time. And so this was about 20 20 years ago. And I saw this beautiful bright yellow Xterra and I wanted it. And I don't even care about cars, but I needed to get a new car at the time. And I really wanted this. It was so pretty. I just loved the color. And everyone I spoke to said, "What are you doing? What a bad idea. Don't do that." And the key here is that I listened to everyone else and not me. I did not buy the car. And then it became this game. So my daughter and I would go around and we had very specific rules. Buses don't count, taxis don't count, construction equipment doesn't count, but we'd be like, yellow car, yellow car. And we would do this for years. And the saddest part is that I knew why I wasn't buying it. I knew clearly, consciously, that it was because other people had said this is a really bad idea. So ultimately, 18 years passed, at which point, at some point in there, my husband said, "This is just ridiculous. Like, instead of pointing out yellow cars, why don't you get it?" So I decided I would, and then they weren't making it anymore. So then I had to mourn this because I'm like, wow, this was symbolic of me not doing what mattered to me. Small thing, but such an important symbol. So one day we went to a hockey game local to where we are in Connecticut. And when we came out, there was this beautiful yellow Jeep parked right next to us. And I was like, "Oh, look at that. That's amazing." He said, "Oh, I meant to tell you, they just started it. It was called the Renegade," which is hysterical. I'm like, "Oh, the Renegade?" And we went the very next day because it happened to be, the timing was perfect. I was looking to lease a car, which I'd never done before. We went, I leased the car, and as we left, I was literally shaking because the magnitude of actually acting on something that I cared about just for me and that I had consciously put off because of the fear of other people's opinions was just so big. So I had that for 3 years. I loved it. And people, including some of the people from 20 years earlier, would say, "Why are you driving that?" And some people would say, "Oh, well, clearly you're comfortable bringing attention to yourself." Like, no, I mean, it's not to get attention and it's not to hide from attention. It has nothing to do with anyone else. Like, drive whatever you want. I don't care. This was just about me. So just a month ago, the lease on that yellow car was up. And so it was time to trade it in. And I went and I was thinking I would do yellow again. I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. What am I going to do?" I ended up with a mojito green Jeep Wrangler. And apparently there's a little thing. Jeep Wrangler owners are supposed to wave to other Jeep Wrangler owners. So whenever I'm there, I'm like, "Oh, like I have all these friends. They wave, I wave." It's pretty funny. I didn't know that. So literally people at my university, people didn't know I was trading it in. And so there was my car. And then several people came into my office and said, "Is that like," it's almost lime colored, "is that bright green car yours?" And I'm like, "Yes." They're like, "We knew it. Who else would have that?" And that was one of the best things someone could say. I love the fact that someone would say about me, "Of course you're a person who would have a green car." And I'm like, yeah, just because it makes me smile. Why wouldn't I want to smile more? Now, we haven't mentioned this, but maybe I can throw this in here. So we know I'm this board certified clinical psychologist, and I've been doing psychological practice for more years than my age seems to indicate. Right, I keep telling myself that, and I do executive coaching and the speaking and the books. And then I'm a professor at a university. But I've also trained as a shaman in the tradition of the Q'ero shamans of Peru. Mm-hmm. And really, this came about because I completely believe that we are mind, body, spirit. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I had the mind stuff that made sense with the psychology. I'd actually gone through and became a yoga teacher. So I'd done yoga teacher training. So that was the body. And the basics of what you do in psychology are always going to be eat well, sleep well, move your body, breathe, and repeat the whole process over and over again. But the spiritual part was also an important part. And I'm very open to any way that anyone thinks about the world or spirituality. So whether it's religion and formal religion or spirituality or faith, because I think that's a really important component to have as part of who we are. And if nothing else, I really think that there's this energy that we feel. So just like you and I did, you can meet someone and connect right away, and you just know. And to my mind, that's an energetic connection. And in fact, the Benson Henry Institute at McLean is beginning to study the energy between people, right? So we're beginning to sort of figure out what indigenous populations and other parts of the world have known forever. Because, in the West, we're like, show me the data.
Right.
So I've studied shamanism. I have actually studied this in the US, in Costa Rica, in Ireland, and for me, what was really phenomenal was in Peru, where we went around to all of the sacred sites, and I had the opportunity to study with actual Q'ero shamans of the Q'ero nation in learning that. And it opened up a whole new way of looking at the world. And the part that I like best is that the belief that the Q'ero have is that there's energy in all of us and that we're connected to everything, every living thing. And that sometimes, well, throughout our life at any different time, we have energy that no longer serves us. And then there's energy that does serve us. So it's a very important distinction because it's not good or bad. So it's not that there's bad energy. There's stuff or things that we hold on to that no longer serves us. Well, that made complete sense from a psychology perspective to me, because obviously there's patterns and ways, perspectives that don't serve us, or even habits and things that we do. And so this was a nice way. I really saw this combining of psychological principles with this very important sort of spiritual understanding of the world in working and identifying energy. And that's added a whole new dimension to my life. And that comes in when I'm doing coaching or when I'm doing speaking. That's a part of it. Whether or not we're talking about it overtly, understanding that we're all connected. There's a common humanity and that we have a connection to the rest of the universe, I think really makes a difference in feeling grounded and clear, and that there's so much more possibility than we could ever imagine.
Well, and I think that's a good point that you raise, because when you connect with someone, there's a thread. So we're kind of going through the ebb and flow of our lives, and there are people that we connect with, for a certain period of time. There are other people that we kind of go through our lives with, and they're just kind of there. And then there are others that we really have this intimate connection, and it could be long-term or it could be short-term. But I think a lot of times we take for granted, oh, this is someone that's just going to be around for a short period of time. We don't have a lot in common, et cetera, and they kind of go on their way. But it's dealing with those feelings that resonate, but it's also addressing the ones that don't and being able to let go of them rather than holding on to them. And I think that's one of the things as a shaman, that you're able to help people kind of like release them, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly. So sometimes people talk about this as cutting cords or letting go, or I always think of it, the vision that I have in my head is that we have these sort of like fish hooks and cords, so to speak, or lines between ourselves and other people. And sometimes they just sort of get stuck in there, like childhood wounds, stuff like that. And so to my mind, I work with people to sort of pull the hook out and drop it. And the other person gets to decide what they're going to do on their end. Like they can keep that hook attached, but if it's not still hooked into me and pulling me forward, then I'm free to go about my own direction. And so that is part of the work I do, is what is that releasing or that letting go? And I think it's also a framework to help people understand. So sometimes we say, oh, don't take it personally, just let it go. And people are like, how do I do that? Like, if it was that easy, don't you think I would have done it? Yes, I do. And so this is, I think, a framework for us to envision how it is that we can have some of these lasting, no longer serving us connections, or holding on to the past or to something else. Maybe it's a failed expectation or a hurt or whatever it is. And it gives us a way to envision that and then move away from that freely, without blame and without guilt, right? Because it's so easy to sort of continue with the resentment to others. And it's also really easy to keep going that guilt, like I should have, and why didn't I? And neither one of those, resentment keeps us and guilt keep us focused on the past. And we're here and we're moving forward. We can learn from the past, but we can't go back to it. So
you can't.
Why do we want to stay stuck?
Yeah. You can't relive the past. And no matter how much you want to change the past, you've got to really just let it go and accept the fact that whatever happened, what was the lesson learned, and move forward with that new knowledge or new experience or whatever. So one of the questions that I have for you, and as a result of the folks in our community that are listening, if they want to learn more about, connecting with you and how they might be able to let that little fish hook go, how would they connect with you, or how would you want to go forward?
I would love to hear from anyone in your community, even just because connections are good. Because as human beings, we love to connect with other people. That's really the part of the energy that keeps us going. So people can always email me. It's Kristina M. Hallett at Gmail. That's Kristina M as in Marie, HALLETT at Gmail. They can also find me on my website, which is drkristinahallett.org, DrKristinahallett.org. So those are great places. You can see all of the different things that I do online. You can see speaking clips, see the books, find out about shamanism, or just be like, hey, look at that. She knows all the most fabulous people in the world, just like Karen.
Yes. Well, and that's one of the other things that I wanted to actually talk to you about, because a lot of times women are feeling, well, I want to talk to someone and maybe I don't really connect with them, and maybe that's you will connect with them. And the fact that you've written this book called, Own Best Friend or Be Awesome may be something that resonates better than let go, embrace change, and have fun. And it really is a matter of finding the person that you connect with the best that can help you break free and thrive, because we all want that life. We all want that life that says, I am an awesome person. I want the rock star life. You label it one way, I label it a different way. I will wear red, you will wear leopard. And it really is just finding the right person for you. And I believe that this is a doorway, and this is a doorway just to kind of see what more there is in your life that you can embrace and really enjoy.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things, and you and I epitomize this, but it's so important to call this out. There's no competition.
Yeah.
Not at all. It's about what's the best match for this person. And I refer people to you, and you're happy to do that for me. And it's not like, oh, well, why don't they want me, or taking it personally. It's about saying, if I really want to be of service, then the way that I'm of service is connecting someone with whatever works for them. Mm-hmm. Every single time I teach a class or give a talk, I am talking about all these other books, all these other providers. I am putting that out there because, exactly as you said, if my words aren't what resonate, then, and someone else's does, well, what I want is for people to be able to grow and to be and see themselves as awesome as they are. And every time that happens, that's just a hallelujah, right? That is fantastic when that happens. And the mechanism of how that occurs, doesn't matter to me, because if I'm saying, hey, you need to speak to this person, I fully believe that the energy of the world means that's going to make my world better, and then some other thing is going to come around for me. And so I really believe that there's this balance that comes from being of service and caring more about the outcome for the person than about the personal gain.
Right. And both you and I have this similar opinion. We're raising that vibrational energy in the planet. And
Exactly.
the more people we can touch, the more we can help them raise their vibrational density to be lighter, to be more joyful, and to be at peace and happiness. And that's really the goal.
Right. And you know what? And that's the kind of world I want to live in, right? Because the more people that there are who feel that way, the better the world is for me. And that, I think sometimes people think, wow, that sounds sort of selfish. I'm like, no, why wouldn't I want as many people as possible to feel as good about who they are as possible? Because that's that exponential benefit, right? And so it grows and it grows and it grows. And I think that there's some pretty serious things in our world that need to be shifted. And this is how I view my part in that, is sort of putting that out there and saying anything to help the rest of the world, because then that just makes it a more comfortable world for me to live in.
Absolutely. So I really want to thank you, Dr. Kristina Hallett, today for our conversation. It has been inspiring. It has been uplifting, and I just can't wait to see more people wearing leopard.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, giving me this opportunity to chat with you today. I've really loved it. You know that we're so in sync, and I'm sure your community can see that right away. And literally my very best wishes to you and all of your community.
Thank you so much, Kristina.